Thank you, Chair, and thank you for appearing today. My questions are to do with the Army's electric vehicles. Since the publicly released information of an electric vehicle conversion of the Australian design and built Bushmaster, has the Australian Army progressed to test the operational feasibility of other Australian electric military vehicles in the field? And I understand from Minister Conroy, who gave us a briefing, the crossbencher briefing, that this is at concept stage at the moment, nothing more.
Lieutenant General Simon Stewart, Chief of Army. Senator, I'll begin and then I'll hand to my colleague General Vagg for any further comments. The concept demonstrator that you refer to was part of our power and energy work, which involves some studies to understand how we can use alternate sources of fuel. One, to ensure an operational capability to reduce the logistic footprint that is created by bulk fuel. A couple of important points to note are firstly that we're able to produce an electric Bushmaster, but that was to really test the parameters of power generation, how that work would translate into the design of the vehicle, and really test the art of the possible. Of course, the operating environment would require us probably to have a hybrid approach where you use, similar to a hybrid passenger vehicle, both the solar panels but also the fuel that would be required. So it is on a path of development to determine how we can continue to operate vehicles, reduce the logistic footprint, and obviously the output of those vehicles.
What progress has been made? At what stage are you at right now?
Senator, as the Chief has alluded, we've produced the capability demonstrator with Talus. One of the limitations is power generation and storage and the distribution, which I think you'd appreciate.
Easy to understand that.
Yeah, for operational use. Yeah. We've got a number of studies that are underway to look at power generation and electrification of various size wheeled and tracked vehicles. Those studies are indicating that the technology won't be in a mature state until about 2030. We have plans from 2030, 2035 onwards to look at how we'll transition the broader Army fleet as we move across.
So the time frame you're hoping to put something into operation at 2030?
That's the time that the studies are indicating that the technology will be mature enough so we can field it as an operational capability.
So at the moment there's no real understanding based on anything concrete, just studies at the moment. So you haven't got a plan or a deadline or a date?
As I said, Senator, from about 2035 we've got plans to look at starting to convert Army's fleets across to electric vehicles.
What are your findings on energy density? Because one of the advantages of hydrocarbon fuels like petrol and diesel and gas is that they have very high energy density. Not as high as nuclear, but they have very high energy density. Sunlight is incredibly low.
And that's a good observation, Senator. So to inform some of that work, we've got trials with electric vehicles that are occurring this year. We have 40 electric vehicles, civilian, that are operating in the ACT. From 2024, we'll look at a series of small, light commercial vehicles who will use hydrogen cells to power them. We'll use those capability demonstrators to inform further work and how we'll look to operationalise that.
So, to what stage has the thinking got in terms of replacing the current diesel-powered vehicles?
Again, I go back to my first point, Senator. Looking at the levels of maturity for those technologies, we don't expect that to mature until about 2030, where we can deploy it as a legitimate operational capability.
Is there any way in which our concrete operational plans assume electric vehicles, say, by 2035? Are we going to be reliant upon these things being developed?
I don't think we'd be reliant on them being developed, but that's a goal where we'll look to do that transition.
So it's a goal, not a plan yet.
So, yeah, Senator, if I can describe the approach, there's the whole range of emerging technologies that we need to understand and then test their application to the set of tasks that we need to provide for the integrated force. In some cases, I expect those will be successful. In other cases, they may not be. So what we want to be is informed and taking advantage of the developments in technology as they're developing, and we work with both academia and industry to explore the art of the possible. We're not making any suppositions about exactly when, because we just don't have the evidence or the data to support exactly where that technology may be. But what we're working on at the moment in the case of electrification is that we think, based on the advice we've received, that technology, and noting your point about energy density and the requirement to operate vehicles in operational situations, is probably toward the end of this decade. But that is our estimation based on the work we've done so far and the advice from experts that we've been working with.
So have you deployed any of the vehicle in the wet or in the north or in the desert? Didn't put it through any arduous tests, or are you still very much concept?
It's still very much a concept, Senator.
Okay, thank you. What about battery charging? You mentioned that as one of your challenges, because I think, from memory, it's a Friday afternoon, the Minister for Defence Industry, Mr Conroy, said that you had some concepts for fast charging. Is that correct?
We'll have to take that one on notice.
Yeah.
Senator, as I say, as part of the power and energy work we're doing, we're looking at a whole range of things, which include both power generation as well as storage, which includes battery technology.
So power generation, what would that involve? What sort of concept?
The solar
panels.
hybrid engines and those sorts.
Hybrid using hydrocarbon fuelled engine.
Yes.
Okay. And what about, you're not far enough advanced then to discuss the recharging question for field operation?
No, that's, as I alluded to before, we're still looking at how that technology matures, and that's one of the principal challenges that we need to overcome.
What's your early gut feeling? Because much of the science on this, the application of the science on these technologies is still hypothetical, wish.
Senator, I don't think my gut feeling is particularly relevant. We'll follow the science and what can be demonstrated and how that can be applied to the work that we are required to do. But we think it makes a lot of sense to be understanding, to be working with experts on how we can apply new and emerging technologies to the business of Army in this instance.
Well, I'm reassured now, because initially I wondered if we were going to be dependent on something happening in the next few years, and I had visions of extensive extension cords all across North Queensland and the Territory. So that's put that to rest. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot.